Okay everyone at Deep Space High, I'm ready to transmit my presentation on Spaceports. You're gonna love it! Transmitting in 3, 2, 1. It's probably safe to say that as long as there have been humans, we've wondered about travelling into space, to explore the stars and planets. Of course, it's only been in the last 100 years that we've been able to get off the ground. After the first manned aircraft took to the skies, things really began to change after World War II, around 70 years ago. The war required aviation technology to improve and develop, and do it fast. At the start of the war, all planes were propeller-powered. By the end, jet-powered planes had been developed and German scientists had developed unmanned rockets to bomb their enemies. After the war, this technology was developed by scientists and engineers all over the world to improve their space technology, and so the space race began. The superpower nations rushed to create spacecraft which could go further and further, not just into orbit, but to the moon itself, something the Americans achieved in 1967. It was an exciting time. As well as real space development, science fiction programs and comics began to dream of what might be possible through the intergalactic travel. One of these was a British character called Dan Dare. He was the chief pilot of the Interplanetary Space Fleet, an imaginary organisation which patrolled the solar system, solving crime and exploring the planets from a spaceport at Formby in Lancashire. It was a time when anything felt possible. British scientists, excited about all these new possibilities, worked on developing rockets like the Black Arrow and Blue Streak to launch satellites into space. But whilst the rockets were tested on the Isle of Wight and in Cumbria, they were launched in Australia, and ultimately only one British satellite called Prospero was actually launched using a British rocket before the space programme was cancelled in 1971. But whilst Britain wasn't launching rockets, British engineers were closely involved in the development of satellites and new technology, such as carbon fibre, which would help make crafts lighter and stronger. Today, Britain is just as excited about exploring space, and some people say that there is a new space race with technology improving even more quickly. So, who's joined the race? A company called Orbital Access is working on spacecraft which will be able to get high enough into the atmosphere to create microgravity conditions. Microgravity is crucial for helping research medicines and medical procedures, develop new materials for use in space, and also undertake experiments around long-duration human spaceflight, important to help astronauts get to Mars. Then there's Reaction Engines, another British company who are working on fully reusable, single-stage-to-orbit, unmanned spaceplane called Skylon. It will use a pioneering engine design that will enable it to reach 5 times the speed of sound in air-breathing mode, and then accelerate to Mach 25, that's 18,000 miles per hour, in orbit. As well as launching satellites, it's expected to carry spaceflight experienced participants and transport cargo and astronauts to the International Space Station. Now, I've already spoken about the Virgin Galactic that will enable space tourists to travel into space on board the rocket-powered Spaceship Two Spaceplane. Well, there are other spaceplanes that we might see in the future. One is SpaceCab from Bristol Spaceplanes. It's a proposed airliner-style craft that can fly into orbit, that can launch satellites or take you to a space hotel. And Airbus Defence and Space, the people behind the enormous A380, are developing a suborbital spaceplane about the size of a business jet for spaceflight experience. So the skies will be busier than ever in the future. Maybe you'll be on board yourself. Uh-oh, losing the connection. Catch you next time.
Deep Space High, Spaceports. With support from the UK Space Agency. Find out more at funkidslive.com/space.